Hello, this is Robert Messina. My complaint is that it's called Good Friday. What was good about it? And there is an answer to that. There is an answer to what is good about it. And that is that our atonement for our sins were paid for. The Son of Man, ransomed for many, has ransomed us, paid for us, so that we can live with him forever. And that happened on that day, okay? The day that he was crucified. All right? So I totally can see that. But there was, out of all of the groups involved on that day that had an interest in that day, the one that rejoiced the most was the power of darkness. Now, I'm going to expand on that a little more. But they're the ones who think it's good. Did the Father in heaven think it was good? Was he happy that day? Was he glad to see his son die? That he had to hide his face from him? That he had to hear him cry, my God, why have you forsaken me? Was that music to his ears? Yes, he was happy that his son obeyed him and submitted to his will, and it was his will that he do that, but he didn't want to do it. I mean, like Abraham was in the same boat. He was told, he was asked to be like the Father in heaven and kill his only son. And he listened and obeyed, but he didn't want to. He did not want to do that. But he did because that's what made him father of faith. He believed God, and he was tested, and he won the test. He passed the test of faith by action. There's faith, and there's faith tested and winning by action. Those are the works. But Abraham was considered to be righteous because he believed God. We get our righteousness because we believe God. So that was something that the Father didn't want. Did the Son want it? No. The night before, he was praying heavy sweat drops of blood. He was intensely praying. He had his three chosen top apostles, Peter, James, and John, with him in the garden to pray. And they fell asleep. They couldn't take it. It was a heavy, heavy night. It was not easy to get through the clouds, you might say. But they did. Jesus did. Jesus was able to overcome in prayer, and he resolved himself to submit to when the soldiers were going to come and take him. He had resolved, and at that moment, he was going to submit himself and give himself up. So it was intense prayer. Did he want to do that? No. Did he like the idea that he was going to be carrying a cross and they were going to post it into the ground and they were going to nail him to that cross? Was he happy about that? Was that a good day for him? No. So it wasn't good for the Father, it wasn't good for the Son. Was the Spirit of God happy about that? Of course not. Of course not. Were the disciples happy about it? Well, when they smited the shepherd, the sheep were scattered. As sheep, at that point, they were as sheep without a shepherd. Were they happy about it? No. Were they convinced that he was going to live again? No. They didn't know that either. Jesus knew it. Jesus did know. But he still didn't want to go through it. Who was it involved that was happy? Well, the ones in the crowd were saying, give us Barabbas. They had a choice. They could set Jesus free, who didn't do anything. And everybody knew that. Everybody knew he was an honest man of God. And they wanted him to get crucified instead of Barabbas, who was a thief. They wanted one of their own to be set free, you might say. So the Pharisees, so-called men of God, weren't close to men of God. And they wanted him out of the way because they always had that spot of people respecting them as their rabbi, their master, the great one for them, the one who talks wisdom from God, counsels us with God, God's words. They were so far from being a good shepherds that Jesus said, look, they're like sheep without a shepherd. And he was referring to the fact that those shepherds with the high priest garments were supposed to be shepherding them. And they weren't doing their job. And he was against them. And he pointed out all of the ways they have that we should not mimic. We should not be like them. We should not look at them and then want to be like them. Not at all. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. For a little leaven leavens the whole lump. And the leaven of the Pharisees wasn't so much useful lusts and things like that, or thievery or anything like that. It was mostly that they were boastful about being men of God. And they wanted the worship of men, and they wanted to please, instead of wanting to please God, they wanted to please men. That was the leaven of the Pharisees, mostly. So anyway, it was a good day for the Pharisees because they wanted Barabbas. They wanted Jesus to be crucified. Now, who else was involved? Like I said, the power of darkness. You are the power of darkness, and this is your hour. And he's talking about the hour that his life was going to be snuffed out. The light of the world was going to be snuffed out by the power of darkness. Oh, how they look forward to that day. They look forward to that day. That's why it was, to them, a good day. Okay, let's read it in Luke 22:53. When I was daily with you, talking to the Pharisees, in the temple, you stretched forth no hands against me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. Let's go to Zephaniah 1 and just read a couple of verses here. 14. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near and hastes greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry bitterly. So this is now a picture of the Lord on the cross, and it's hasting. It's coming close. It's already upon us. And then he says, even the voice of the day of the Lord. This is the day the Lord has made, and it was made by his voice. And this is where we are. And then he says, the mighty man shall cry bitterly. Remember, he was saying, Lord, O Lord, why have you forsaken me? That was him crying bitterly. He was crying. And the Lord, his father, heard him cry and hid his face. 15. Now that day is a day of wrath. Now it's a day of wrath of the Father and the Son, and wrath of God against them that are doing it. And it's the wrath of them that are doing it to Jesus. They both have wrath on both sides. It's a day of trouble and distress. A day of wasteness and desolation. Everything is desolating. And then here are four terms of darkness now. It's a day of darkness and gloominess. Same thing as darkness, translated the same way. A day of clouds, and clouds bring darkness, and thick darkness. Notice the fourth one listed is thick darkness. Now I say that because from noontime that day till 3 o'clock, there were 3 hours of darkness. It was an unusual, everybody in the dark, okay, for 3 hours. Now what happened in the 4th hour was Jesus died. It was their day. It was the hour of the power of darkness, the 4th hour. So when it says thick darkness here, that was their hour. So there were 3 normal hours of darkness in the middle of the day, and there was one more thick darkness added there, and that was their hour when they actually snuffed his life out. So there's 4 times the word darkness is mentioned in Zephaniah, and the 4th hour was the hour of the power of darkness, where his life was taken out, where his light was extinguished. The light of the world was extinguished. Okay? Now, the other thing that I find to be almost amusing is that they call it Good Friday, and to be technically correct about it, in order for you to get 3 days and 3 nights, okay, to get 3 days, it doesn't have to be 12-hour days. It could be a piece of a day. A piece of a day will count as 1 day, but you have to have the piece of the day. So, and you have to have at least a piece of the last night as well. The first night, they get the whole thing. The second night, they get the whole thing. And the third night, which is going to be the third day because it began, that third night began the third day. And that's why we say that he rose on the third day. But it was, he rose on the, during the night on the third day. The night comes before the daytime. The evening and the morning were the first day. And it was always like that. Night comes first, darkness comes first. And that's the way it is in our world. We are born into a dark world, and the light of the world is coming, and it's going to dawn on us, and we're going to be with him. So we're going to have a darkness, and we're going to have a light. Okay? We are the light of the world when we're in the darkness. But anyway, so you have to have the 3 days, 3 nights. The day that, in order for him to rise up on the third day, which is a Sunday, which began at night, and it's going to fulfill the third night, and he comes out, the disciples came, the women came very early in the morning, while it was still dark. All right? So when they were there, the stone was already rolled, and he was already out of the grave. He was already resurrected. He rose out of the grave on the third day, which began the evening before. Okay, so let's count the days. If the third day has to be Saturday, right? Because Saturday is before Sunday, the first day of the week. The third day has to be Saturday, which is a Sabbath, which is important as well. Okay, so the third day is Saturday. The day before that is Friday. That's the second day. That's the day number 2. It's a full day. Okay? And it's a Friday. And it's the high Sabbath, which is another important thing. Because they had to get Jesus into the grave before sunset on Thursday. Because Thursday is the first day. So the first day is Thursday. And they have to get him in the grave before sunset on Thursday, because as soon as sunset hits, it begins the high Sabbath, which means that nobody could do any work, and they weren't allowed to do any work putting him in the grave either. So that's why they had to hurry up and get him in there. So it had to be a Thursday. And it had to be a time when there were 2 Sabbaths together like that, because the women had to wait until the Sabbath was over. And the first, that first Thursday evening, which began Friday, the 5th day, was a high Sabbath, and so they couldn't adorn the grave on Friday. And then the following evening was Saturday, and they couldn't. There was another regular Sabbath. They couldn't adorn the grave. They had to wait till the Sabbath was over, which was Sunday, the first day of the week. So they were there early in the morning before it was day. So count it all up, you're going to have 3 days and 3 nights where he is in the grave. And the first day, the Thursday, he's only a very small portion of the day, because he died sometime after 3 o'clock, and they had a few hours to get them. But it wasn't that far they had to go, because the garden tomb where his grave was basically about 200 feet from there. So all things work together for the good to them that love God that day. They got him in the grave before it got dark. Okay? So I just think it's interesting that he died on a Thursday and they call it Good Friday. Because why is that? Because they haven't got a clue of what's going on. That's why. Those people, I'm sorry, I was born Catholic. I'm not proud of it. When I became a Christian, I stayed as a Catholic for a while. It didn't last long. There were way too many things. I was a Bible reader. I could see all the things wrong they do. Call no man your father. What do you call the priest? A father. You're not supposed to worship idols. I used to talk to that statues. What am I talking to a statue for? I'm just telling you things like that. Oh, look at Jesus' eyes. Look at his eyes. He's full of love. He is full of love. But you're not going to get it from looking at a portrait of a man with eyes. You're not going to know the love of God from that. You're going to know the love of God because he talks to you, he comforts you, he teaches you, and he loves you. A portrait doesn't do that. All right? We got to get away from things that men tend to comfort themselves in pagan religion, heathen religion. That's what it is. And that's the reason why they call it Good Friday. But if they got the day right and it was Thursday, even if they got that day right, they would still call it good. Anyway, the mighty man shall cry bitterly. Jesus is the mighty man right there, crying bitterly. Why have you forsaken me? He's crying. He's crying to his Father. He's showing his little bit of weakness that he has. But he has a little bit of weakness. He is Son of Man. And he's crying. He feels like he's left and his Father is leaving. His Father is not there for him. Is that a good thing? You want to see the mighty man cry? Yeah, there are some that want to see that. The power of darkness wants to see that. That's all. Nobody else wants to see that. Nobody that's getting the atonement, the good thing about this day. Nobody that's receiving the payment, the redemption for their sins. Nobody amongst us is happy about that. 15, it's a day of wrath. There's wrath on both sides. There's wrath from the Father and the Son. There's wrath from God against those Pharisees that are doing this. And there's wrath of the defiant wrath from the Pharisees against God that is doing it back. It's a day of wrath on both sides. Is a day of wrath a good thing? Even if your side has your defiant wrath, even if you have wrath against God, who has wrath against you, by the way, you're not going to get away with it. But is a day of wrath good? No, there's nothing good about a day of wrath. A day of trouble and distress. What do you mean trouble? Why is there trouble? Oh, didn't he do all these miracles for all these people? I mean, a lot of people healthy and healthy and fine and strong and faithful and have turned to the kingdom of God and received the Lord. Aren't all those people, aren't they in trouble now? Their hope is collapsing right in front of them. Their hope is on a tree dying as a regular man. And a lot of people say, if you're God, why don't you come off the cross? He was God, and that's why he's on the cross. Trouble and distress. Is that a good thing? Can we call this day good? Did you ever call a day of trouble and distress good? A day of wasteness and desolation. There is wasteness. Everything is wasted and desolated. When things are wasted and desolated and destruction happens to you, do you ever call it good? You say, oh, what a good day I had today. Everything got wasted. I just got hit by a hurricane. My house is blown away. Oh, I'm desolated. Isn't that a good day? You never did. A day of darkness, gloominess, clouds, and thick darkness. 4 terms of being dark. Are four times of darkness a good thing? Do you like to see the middle of the day go dark for 3 hours? Wait a minute. I thought there were 4 times of dark. Yeah, the last one is thick darkness. The last one's thick darkness. Because it's their hour, and it's the hour of the power of darkness. That's why there's 4 listed there. And this is where we are. My complaint is that it's called Good Friday.